Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, January 5th. This is episode 45 of the Inside the Huddle podcast, and we have made it. It is the final Sunday of the regular season, week 18. Lots of action today. Big game tonight between the Lions and Vikings. Game 272 should be great. And last night or yesterday, you got two games on. A couple AFC North showdowns, Browns, Ravens, and the Bengals, Steelers. So we'll break down those as well. DiMari, it's here, final week. Next week, we're talking about playoffs and probably some offseason stuff for the teams that will finish out their year today. But a lot still has to happen today. A couple playoff implications on some games today. NFC South. You've got obviously the final AFC spot that's up for grabs. Bengals, Dolphins, Broncos staying alive there. So how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, and same as last week. Sorry for the bad lighting in the house. I can't figure it out. I kind of feel like one of the guys that's like over the laptop, distorted voice, black screen, acting for your bank information or whatever. But oh yeah, pretty big week, like you said. So NFC South is still yet to be figured out. We got Atlanta, we got Tampa. Both teams still fighting to win that division and get, I believe, will be the fourth seed in the NFC coming up. Obviously, with Cincinnati's win last night, big win, definitely needed that. Some positive for Cincinnati, some bad for Pittsburgh, as we talked about last week as well, just furthering our point of how bad that team looks. But big win for Cincinnati. Now they need some help today. They need a Denver loss. They need a Miami loss to get in. And there's one guy right now where all the power in his hands, and that is Carson Wentz, who will be starting for the Chiefs today. Destiny of three teams in his hands. So as much as that game probably looks boring, Chiefs resting starters, like that is a huge game, huge implications. So very great week, absolute banger tonight on Sunday Night Football. Script writers wrote it up perfectly. Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, possibly two MVP candidates going at it in Detroit. Can't write it better than that, but we got a big week, so let's get into it.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy to think the beginning of the season, if you would have told me Jared Goff would be playing, in this type of game, I would have believed you. But Sam Darnold, script writer's definitely on fire with that one because nowhere, I don't think anybody expected to see Sam Darnold. And it's crazy to think, and a lot of these will be offseason conversations once things really conclude here, the playoffs and all that, and once the Vikings eventually get eliminated or go on and win the Super Bowl. But like what's going to happen with JJ McCarthy now? That's a whole nother story, which is crazy to think after that preseason game where he looked so good. If you were to tell me at the end of the year, we'd be talking about maybe trading JJ McCarthy. Just crazy. And that's what makes the NFL so great is stories like this. But yeah, let's get to yesterday's games. And by the way, not only does Carson Wentz now have basically the balance of the life or the future, I should say, of three teams from a playoff perspective, lying the balance of Carson Wentz. But also, if you're a Bengals fan and the Broncos lose, you're going to need Jeff Ulbrich and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets to go out there and actually play competent today. So Bengals fans will get the full Jeff Ulbrich experience, which is not a good experience. Just letting all the Bengals fans out there know. And thankfully, today is it for the Jets here. But anyway, let's get to the games yesterday. Bengals, Steelers. We'll start with Ravens, Browns, rather. We'll go in chronological order here. This game was kind of, I guess, as to be expected. We were talking about yesterday, going back and forth over text just about whether one of us was going to take the Browns plus 20 or not. Bailey Zappi, DTR got in there a little bit yesterday. I mean, this Browns quarterback room is horrendous on so many levels. It reminds me a lot of the Jets QB room last year, where final week of the season, you're just rolling out guys that just do not belong at the NFL level. As they kind of stuck around, and I shouldn't say stuck around. It was not a 20-plus point blowout. They actually had the spread covered there. And then Bailey Zappi throws the pick, and Derrick Henry has the touchdown, and Derrick Henry scored another touchdown. So he put up two, I guess you want to call them garbage time touchdowns there to add 14 points on the board. And the Ravens win this one 35-10. I don't think any crazy surprises from this one. Really, just from a Browns perspective, now this morning you get the firing of Ken Dorsey, which I think most people probably saw coming. There was going to be changes after a 3-14 season where, it was awful on so many levels, where you roll out all these different quarterbacks. The offense looks terrible. after a season last year where you go to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. So Kevin Stefanski will keep his job, but Dorsey's out. I mean, just what was your thoughts on this performance yesterday? The run game, too, was terrible. I mean, this was a Browns team. You could just tell watching this game. They were just counting down the minutes on that clock, waiting for this season to end. And now you enter a pivotal offseason. What's next with Deshaun Watson, the whole contract? What's next with Myles Garrett? He looked pretty angry yesterday. He looked not angry. He just looked upset yesterday on the bench. Got 2 years left. Did the Browns, is he here long term? I would say this is probably the first time ever in his career where you kind of go into the offseason questioning what his future is. I doubt they trade him, but still a lot of questions face this Browns team after another blowout yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of said it perfectly. This was a team that just had no ounce of life in them during the course of that game. Game kind of started out, and you expected Baltimore to just move the ball up and down the field, and Cleveland kind of stuck into it. And it's like after that pick six to Nate Wiggins, that's when everything kind of just went downhill for Cleveland. And it's just too early in the game where it's just everything is just like, you know what? Why are we actually here? Why are we actually on this field? I think yesterday was less about Cleveland. Like, I know we all know what Cleveland was. It's been a terrible season, quarterback issues, everything you just named. Not even going to rename it. Just a bunch of issues with Cleveland. So that was just, their last, I guess you say, effort for guys playing for incentive to try to get incentive. I think this was more about Baltimore and what we might see from Baltimore moving forward. I think Lamar probably secured of the MVP with yesterday's performance, which surprisingly the starters played the whole entire game. I thought maybe a half and done, but Ravens just kind of continue to prove like, hey, we might be the best shot to beat Kansas City, if not Buffalo. But Cleveland's sake, I mean, so many questions going into the offseason. And again, Dorsey being fired this morning, that kind of already shows there is going to be some changes. A guy like Myles Garrett, I hope he does get a chance to move on. They just completely blow it up. They're not winning that division no time soon. Everything has to possibly go wrong. You would have to put three Russell Wilsons and 3 George Pickens on each team for them to have any chance to, win that division. So hopefully for a guy like Garrett, he goes on elsewhere. But that Browns team, the logo, the team name perfectly describes that team. Brown, you know what I'm hinting at that. Yeah. They just aren't a good team.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I mean, they've been, other than the last 1 year run with Flacco that ultimately ended in the wild card round, they've done nothing. I mean, they are the epitome of just football purgatory, really. They just year in and year out, they disappoint. And yeah, I mean, the roster, I know we could sit here and say, oh, you got Chubb coming back next year, and maybe you figure out, maybe you go get Russ. They have the 3rd pick in the draft after yesterday. So maybe you get a quarterback there, but and we'll talk a lot about this in the offseason. I'll be honest. I don't know how I feel about this quarterback class. I mean, you got Shedeur Sanders, who looked terrible in the bowl game. And I don't really know how I feel about Shedeur anyway, even prior to the bowl game. Cam Ward, I like a lot, but he's standing still in the pocket. And I know that's college and stuff like that. It's the Cheez-It Bowl, kind of, just got all the time in the world, but you're going to get killed in the NFL if for 1 second, if you don't move in the pocket in the NFL for a second, you are going to get killed. That's just not going to go over well. So I don't really know. Maybe they get a Cam Ward, maybe they get a Shedeur, go out and get a Russ, maybe a Kirk Cousins. Somebody other than Watson's got to be under center. I guess the glass half full approach would be like, okay, you've got Jerry Jeudy. He had a good year this year, got over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. You get Chubb back. You get a decent quarterback, and they go and I don't know. But then again, you make a point. They're not winning the division with Kirk Cousins. They're not winning the division with a rookie quarterback. They're not winning the division. Probably not even winning the division with Russ either, because Russ is already in the division. If he could win the division, he would have won it this year. Another year older next year, so. And we'll get to the Steelers here in a second with them. But yeah, I think from a Ravens perspective, they're nasty. They are everything you want in a playoff team. The Ravens have it, 12-5 regular season. And I agree with you. I was kind of a little surprised they didn't pull their starters, but at the same time, too, when the Browns made it 21-10, the Ravens still had to win this game to clinch the, obviously the division. If they would have lost and the Steelers didn't win anyway, but it doesn't matter. But I guess 21-10, they wanted to put up a couple, one more good drive together because I guess, you throw Josh Johnson out there and there's a fumble or the backups and all of a sudden it's 21-17 and something like that happens. So I guess that was probably their thought process. But I mean, Derrick Henry is he's unstoppable. Lamar is going out there and 2 touchdown performance again yesterday. We all know what he can do with his legs as well. In many eyes, probably the back-to-back MVP. Mark Andrews has been playing, better of late. A touchdown yesterday. I mean, and the defense is coming around as well. There was some concerns about the secondary, but I actually think this Ravens team is better than last year's team when they were. I know the record technically doesn't show it, but this is probably in the Lamar era. This is probably the best I felt about a Ravens team going into the playoffs. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. I think kind of the last few years you thought going to the playoffs, like what Lamar Jackson are we going to get? Is it going to be MVP Lamar Jackson or is he going to have a stinker? I think this is probably the most confident you can feel about Lamar Jackson just individually, but the team goes as Lamar goes. So I think with him playing so well, so much more confidence.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And having Derrick Henry now at your disposal is certainly helps as well. I mean, he's a monster for this team and a huge year for him. And even too, like you look back at some of these other playoff runs, some of these other seasons. I mean, Lamar really pretty much every year he was leading the team in rushing yards. Like it was just Lamar. Now that he has a running back too that can dominate. I mean, he did have, Dobbins for those couple of years before the injuries. I know Gus Edwards was able to do some good things over there, but I mean, we're talking about Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins compared to Derrick Henry, a guy who's had over 1,500 yards, I think, 3 times in his career or something. I saw the stat pop up on the screen yesterday. So it's just like elite quarterback who can also run, elite running back, solid defense. AFC North teams are always a tough out just because of that division and the way they play. Good coach. This is, I think, the best shot. This is the best chance they got, in my opinion. But then again, I mean, if you had to rank the AFC teams, they would probably be. Would you put Baltimore over Buffalo or Buffalo over Baltimore? Or throw Kansas City in there as well?
That's actually a very good question. I probably go Baltimore over Buffalo.
I like it. I would probably go Buffalo, but I mean, I would have no problem with Baltimore knocking off Buffalo if they meet in the
just
playoffs.
From a well-rounded perspective, both sides. I kind of feel like I watch Baltimore and you kind of know like typical Baltimore, like, hey, we're going to score 30, but we're going to hold you to under 17. So where you look at Buffalo and it's kind of like the defense goes as the offense goes, but the defense has also kind of been exposed here and there. I think I'm gonna go with Baltimore. I like that answer.
Yeah. So right now, Baltimore 3 seed, they would play actually as of right now, they would, if the Chargers win today, they would play the Steelers in the first round. So Steelers losing yesterday got an incredibly tough break because they go from potentially facing the Texans and winning in the wild card round to now having to probably face the Chargers, or not the Chargers, the Ravens. And then even if they would to beat the Ravens, there's a good chance that being the 6th seed, they would probably have to go play Buffalo the next round. Or actually, no. If Denver loses, they'd have to go play Kansas City, go on the road. So you could look at it, unless if Denver wins, you could look at a path here for Pittsburgh. They would have to go through Baltimore and then through Kansas City first 2 rounds. So I think you can probably maybe kiss their playoff miracle goodbye, I guess.
Cancun's a lot warmer than Pittsburgh. I can tell you that. So
definitely
hopefully
yesterday.
they're packing.
Yeah, no doubt. So that was the first game of the day, Browns-Ravens. You move on to the second game here, just kind of talking about it. Good transition here right into this Steelers game. Bengals get the job done, so they still stay alive. Pretty easy path here moving forward for the Bengals. A Chiefs win, a Dolphins win, they're in, or a Jets win rather. Chiefs, Jets win, Bengals are in. Any of those two things don't happen, they're out. I don't know. I think it's possible that the Chiefs beat the Broncos today. I do. I just do not see a world where the Jets are winning this game. As much as the Dolphins are a warm weather team coming into the cold, it's Tyler Huntley. The Jets are so checked out. I mean, DJ Reed's already talking about free agency. Like their Sauce is missing this game. They're done. They're a typical checked out team that has no interest in playing in today's game. But who knows? We'll see. The Jets are the kings of meaningless wins. To me, though, I always say it, like, if the Bengals get to the playoffs, if they somehow get in, they're going to be dangerous. I think they could be a team that goes on a run. Maybe you think if there's any part of Kansas City today that knows that if they lose or if they win and Miami would to lose, like, is there any part of them that maybe kind of lays off even a little more today because they're not going to want the Bengals to potentially go on a run? Because the defense is playing a lot better. And that was the biggest knock. The defense is playing a lot better. And the offense yesterday was a little bit of a grind, but on the road in Pittsburgh, never easy. They're ready. They're playing their best football.
I think so. Okay, you look back at that first matchup. This is when Cincinnati's defense was like as terrible as it possibly could have played all year. Came down to a PI. We already know how that went. I honestly think if Cincinnati were to meet with Kansas City season would end right there. The hands of Joe Burrow. So if I'm Kansas City today, I mean, let's just play spoiler when it comes to trying to face that Cincinnati team because they can make a run.
Yeah. Now I think it would be totally different if Kansas City today was playing for an undefeated season. Then it would be totally different where they would probably go all out. Even if their backups were in, they would still want to win that game. But they've locked up the 1 seed. They got no business winning. And if it makes their path easier to not have to potentially run into Cincinnati, then, I mean, the entire AFC is probably hoping Cincy doesn't get in, if we're being honest. Like, even Buffalo, if you're a Bills fan, would you rather face the Broncos with a rookie on the road or this Cincinnati team who just knocked you out, by the way, 2 years ago? Burrow and Jamar Chase and all them went into your building and knocked you out 2 years ago. Not even knocked you out. They blew you. I think that was 27-10 or something that game. The Bills no-showed. So it'll be interesting. But I guess, do you think they get in? Like, do you think the chips fall in place where they get in or they don't? I want to see them get in. I want to see the Bengals. Nothing against the Broncos, and they've been great this year. And I do think if there was maybe a defense out there that could stop Josh Allen, it would be that Broncos defense because they are that good. Credit to Vance Joseph, what he's done to that unit this year, taking a team that was letting up 70 last year to this year, one of the better coaching jobs really in the NFL, what he's done to that group. And a lot of the same faces as well. It's not like they've brought in big ticket free agents. A lot of the same guys. He's just really fixed that unit schematically and things like that. But do you think the chips, I guess, fall in place here?
Let's see. Cincinnati won. Denver has to lose as Miami has to lose. I don't. It's tough because as much as I want to see Cincinnati in there, like, if I could, I would take Pittsburgh out and put Cincinnati. I feel like they put up a bigger fight. But how you kind of started off with the Jets being so checked out, and it's just like, how much effort do they give going into this game? Because if there are guys playing for incentive, it's like, hey, let's get our incentive. Let's get the heck out of here. DJ Reed's already, tampering with himself, trying to get out of New York as it is. So do the Jets try and give anything? Denver's case, I feel like that game is so tricky. I know the spread opened up to like 10.5 in Denver's favorite, but Carson Wentz, I don't think Carson Wentz goes out there and just completely puts up a stinker and, maybe he wants to go in and, get some valuable reps because you never know when you're going to need them. So it's kind of tough to say, but I just don't see where everything lines up in the favor of Cincinnati. So if it were to go one way, I think Denver wins and Miami loses. So, no, I think they miss out.
Yeah. And you just look back at some of these
One
losses for
possession
Cincy.
games.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
possession.
I mean, they lost by 1 against KC, as we know, week 2. They lost by 3 in overtime against Baltimore. They lost by 1 against Baltimore. I mean, both of those games, both at home and on the road. I mean, they went on the road that Thursday night game. Crazy, crazy game. And then even the Chargers game, they lost by just 7. The way that ended, of course, was really, really painful. I mean,
Commanders game, that one, the
yeah,
bomb to McLaurin
yeah,
in the fourth quarter, just
yeah. I
it's
mean,
bad.
hey, heck, New England week 1. You lost to a now 3-13 New England team that once their coach ran out of town in Gerard Mayo. I mean, that New England loss might have been maybe even the worst of them all. Because of the fact that that was an automatic win week 1 and they couldn't do it. So yeah, you're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even that 44-38 loss to Pittsburgh, where the offense just balled out and the defense was terrible. It is crazy how bad their defense was. Crazy. I mean, looking back on it, letting up 44 to Russell Wilson and this Steelers team is just wild. It really is. I mean, if the defense was just average, there's a chance they win a division. If the defense was average, they win both the Baltimore games. So they're 11-6. And then pick any of the other 1 games. Like, they probably beat Pittsburgh if the defense is average. They don't let up 44. They probably win any of the 3 first games of the season. I mean, it's not like the defense played bad in Kansas City. I would say more that Kansas City loss was, I mean, that pass interference was definitely a questionable call. I'm not going to blame it on the refs, but, Kansas City's gotten a lot of luck over the years. They pull out the voodoo magic to win some of these games, but I want to see the Bengals get in. I do. I just, your hopes rely on Carson Wentz and Jeff Ulbrich. That's all. I think that's all you got to know.
If the voodoo magic continues today, then it's great. It works
that
out
is true
for Cincinnati, but it's just I can't imagine, sitting at home today. I'm Joe Burrow, whoever, and it's like I have to root for the Chiefs and I have to root for Aaron Rodgers. This is just not an ideal situation. So, that's tough. As much as I want to see Cincinnati in it, it just goes to show you got to take care of business. You got to win those 1 possession games. Yep. If you play 6 of them, it goes to show you just how much. If you play 6 and you win 4, compared to you only win 3, which I know is it's 1 loss, but those losses make such a big difference, as you can see in this case. So now we got to watch Russell Wilson in our NFL playoffs.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, it's if any NFL fan could have a do-over right now, that Pittsburgh game would be the big one, because Cincy would get in over that because they'd have the tiebreaker, of course, with last night's win. If there could be one game that you could flip, it would probably be that Pittsburgh one, losing 44-38 at home. But yeah, I mean, look, if they do get in, they're dangerous. The defense is playing better. The offense is still clicking. And yeah, I mean, I guess you can move on to the Pittsburgh angle here. I don't really know what more to say. It's the same thing with this team. It's the same thing. Russ is this offense he's cooked. I just what happened to this team though? For the first time in a while with this Steelers team, it actually felt like they were finding something offensively. And then, even last year, the whole year, their offense was never any good. Like, they never even showed flashes. They were always barely winning games. Like, this year, they were legitimately dominating some of these games, putting up big time points in some of these games. And I mean, here we are, 4 straight losses. They're done. They're not going anywhere in the playoffs. I don't even know what to game plan for how they can go places in the playoffs. Like what? Russ would have to return to his old ways. And then you'd have to hope that I don't even know. Like we talked about it last week. There's not enough talent on this team. It's like they're running like a 1930s NFL offense that just does not work. It doesn't work.
just watching that game yesterday from start to finish, I honestly thought that Pittsburgh was running like Army or Navy's playbook for that final game. Uh, I'm just saying, this is, we talked about it last week. You don't have the most ideal running back situation with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren.
Yeah.
So Pittsburgh yesterday, there in the second quarter of that game, Russ threw the ball. He was 5 for 12 with 25 yards. This is a Cincinnati defense that has been getting torched all year. Again, they have been playing better, but you just put up 44 on this team a few weeks ago, and you threw for 400 yards. And I'm not saying Russ is going to go out there and do it again, where he throws for another 400. But in a must-win game, division on the line, you are 5 for 12 with 25 yards. So is it Russ? Is it, because I mean, if you think about it, I can't even blame Russ, because Russ is not the play caller. Seven
Yeah.
incompletions,
Arthur
because
Smith.
Burrow at a point was 33 and 40. So you're like, 7 incompletions. Okay, that's not bad. So 33 and 40 compared to 5 and 12, it
Yeah.
looks bad the lesser the number. But Russ is not calling the plays. So must win situation, just as simple it is, the whole team put up a stinker. George Pickens, 1 catch, negative like 2 yards, 3 drops on 5 targets. Freiermuth had a great game. Where was Jalen Warren, who's been you could arguably say you're probably third best pass catcher coming out of the backfield? Jalen Warren didn't have a reception yesterday.
I mean,
Mike
George
Williams,
Pickens.
I don't know.
George, what was
I
George
don't even know.
Pickens doing?
Besides arguing with fans and probably trying not to, fight in the end zone, I don't know. 3 drops. 3 drops.
They
Division on the line. You have 3 drops.
And this is where you do start to wonder, like, is that coaching thing? Like, they were not ready. They just didn't seem prepared.
It reminds me of watching the Cowboys in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Where you go out there where the game is so important. It's not just another week. Like, this is, and they have playoffs, but now, you get to that point where every week is a winner go home. So
Yeah.
it's, single elimination where they show up and they're flat and they can't do anything. And then it's the end of the game where it's already a little too late, where you've already missed so many opportunities, where it's like, hey, let's make this close. Let's keep it close and give false hope. And not even for yesterday, but you're not going to win games like that in the playoffs. And we talked about this last week. You might beat Houston like that, who you're not even going to be matched up against.
Nope.
Possibly. You might beat Houston like that, but you are not beating anybody else in the AFC like that. So, I mean, what is it? 4-game losing streak. It's going to be 5 to end the year.
Yeah.
And I can't even blame Mike Tomlin for it. I can't, because there's no way that team should even be in the playoffs. Just their roster is constructed so terribly. They're lucky to have 7 wins.
It's weird, and I'd have to go back and really look at what they've done, but it is strange. Like, what are they doing in the offseason? And look, I'm not no diehard Pittsburgh fan, so maybe they've made more moves than I thought, but it feels like we're talking about the same players for the last 3-4 years. Like, they've made no attempt to get better. Like, Mike Williams was their big trade. Seriously? I mean, he had the nice catch down the sideline, but I mean, you just look at these names. I mean, Pat Freiermuth had a good game, and he's solid, right? He's been, there for a while. But then look at these other receptions here. I mean, Mike Williams, had a catch. Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin got a target. George Pickens was a no-show. You have to start to question him too. Like, what is his real ceiling? I think we might have hyped up George Pickens as well. If this guy on an actual playoff team, he's probably not a number one. He is on the Steelers, but
I've never seen the hype with George Pickens anyways. It's just,
I agree.
He's not, and it's so hard to compare him to these guys because these guys are just exceptional. But you look at, the CD Lambs and Jamar Chases of the world, where they are complete game changers and they're consistent. You look at George Pickens, it's like, what does he do? He might have a nice grab or two down the sideline, some ridiculous catch, But what else does George Pickens do that stands out at you where you're just like, oh my goodness, all pro wide receiver, Pro Bowler, like nothing. There's nothing fancy. There's no finesse to his game, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying everyone has to be an electric, type of guy, but to be a number one receiver where the offense goes as you and your quarterback goes, he doesn't do anything special. Like he's not going to really elevate the quarterback and the guys around him. And that's key part of why they are on this 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, 100%. It's ugly. I mean, you just look like, let's just say, look in the division, right? I mean, actually, what's crazy? You look at the Bengals. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are probably the top 2 receivers in that division.
They are like by far they are.
So I guess George Pickens, would he be 3? God, why is that division's got no. Actually, Jerry Jeudy's been better than George Pickens this year.
I was about to say Jerry Jeudy might just have taken that. And I mean, I'm not a big Zay Flowers believer, but for what Zay Flowers is able to produce with how well they run the ball, Zay Flowers might also be a more reliable option than George Pickens.
I also think too, George Pickens, like from an outside, like not, I guess, outside the game, but he seems like a little bit, I don't know how to describe it. You probably know, fighting with fans and all that other nonsense, like
he's a diva. We didn't want to use that word, but he's a diva. That's exactly what he is.
I was going to use it. I didn't know if it was too harsh, but yeah, he's a diva.
He's a diva. It's that simple.
That's another big problem with him too. And I remember we were talking about the Steelers, and this is where you start to wonder like what they would need to do to actually go on the road in Baltimore and win. I don't even know. Like, is there even a path? I mean, I guess you would need to let's see that 44-38 game against the Bengals. Russ threw 414 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's not happening. You would need Pickens to play much better than this. I mean, Najee Harris is Najee Harris. He's not a guy that's going to go out there. That's not the Steelers' bread and butter either. I mean, he's not. They're not going to go on the road and beat Baltimore by running Najee Harris 25 times. There's no path.
I think the only path for that to happen,
defensively, I mean, you would need to, if they could slow down, they would need to have a big day defensively. And to be fair to the Steelers, like, that Baltimore game, if Russ doesn't have that fumble, I think it probably would have been a lot closer. That fumble killed them.
But the timing of everything, the timing of all these games is what makes us question Pittsburgh the most. I mean, for instance, you look at Cincinnati early in the year and you're just like, you can always turn it around. There's so much time. But when you look at Pittsburgh and that stretch is every team, I think, during that stretch is in the playoffs right now, and they've lost. So there's nothing confident that in this Pittsburgh team that you look at them and you're just like, they should be able to go turn it around, on the road. And that Cincinnati game, the 44-point game, like that was an outlier. That was just, it was a complete outlier. It's no way they score 44 points again. There's no way they might even score 30. So we're looking at how they beat Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore has to be, I don't know if you remember was it LSU Alabama national championship where LSU didn't pass the 50-yard line until the fourth quarter. Like that is the only way Pittsburgh wins that game. And I just don't see it happen.
Yeah, they're going to need the defense to stand on their head. And I mean, when they faced Baltimore in week 11 in Baltimore, they held them to 16 points. So, I mean, Derrick Henry only had 65 yards that day. That they would need to. It's a tough path. And yeah, I mean, you make a good point. Like that 44-point game, and even that Washington game. I mean, Mike Williams out of the middle of nowhere with 2 minutes left. I mean, there was definitely some luck there. Russell Wilson turning back the clock for a week. Mike Williams first game as a Steeler after getting traded by the Jets. and then, scoring, which was the ultimate Jet moment where you trade a guy, then he makes an impact the next week after he didn't score in a game with us. So it'll be interesting. I guess any given Sunday, right? I guess there's, and who knows? I mean, the Chargers play the Raiders today. I don't see them losing, but I guess there's still a chance the Raiders pull off an upset, ruin their draft position even more, finish the season with a 3-game win streak, and then, then you do get Pittsburgh against Baltimore or Pittsburgh against Houston. I just think from an NFL perspective, Chargers Ravens would be so much better. So much better. Now,
I agree. I agree.
That Chargers Texans game, or that Steelers Texans game wouldn't be very good either, but it would probably be more interesting than Chargers Texans because neither team's playing well, like the Steelers Texans. The Chargers would go into Houston and blow them out. The Steelers Texans, that could actually be a close game. Like, that's really any team's game. It's, I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see the Chargers losing today, but I guess we'll see. All right. Any other thoughts on Steelers, Bengals, any of these games?
Nothing much. I'm ready to kind of see how this playoff picture lines up, but
yeah,
not much to say about the rest of these games.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I do have one question. And Dan Orlovsky did this exercise this week on Twitter with a clip. And it was it was like a 1.5-minute clip. And the question was, if out of the playoff teams right now, and maybe we can even go more in depth with this next week, but just before we get to our MVP candidates, like, if you could, both AFC and NFC, if you took away the quarterback on each playoff team right now, who is the most complete team? Like, which team, if you took away Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, all these guys, and then Goff, Stafford, Hurts, Darnold, Jaden Daniels, right? Baker, assuming they get in. Bo Nix, assuming they get in, right? I don't have to go through the list, but every quarterback that's in the playoffs right now, if you took away that quarterback, which team would you still believe in to go all the way? Like, who is the most complete roster that could win without their quarterback in the AFC and NFC? I think I've got my two answers.
That's actually pretty tough. Do you want me to answer this first? I'm not too.
I mean, I was gonna, for AFC, I'd go Baltimore because I still think they can win if Derrick Henry to me can still go out there and win them a playoff game. Okay, in terms of most, like the Chiefs without Mahomes, they're not, no way. Buffalo without Allen, no. Like, Allen to me, he elevates everybody on that team. Houston without Stroud, I mean, they're not very good with him right now, so no. I guess the Chargers, maybe from a coaching perspective, Harbaugh could maybe coach their way to a playoff win, but no way, no Justin Herbert going into like Baltimore would just not happen. No.
If I had to pick two, I think I'm gonna agree with Baltimore. And NFC, I think it's a lot harder, but I think Detroit and Minnesota are both kind of neck and neck when you look at how those both teams are constructed. But if I had to lean one way, it's going to have to be Detroit. I mean, they got everything you possibly need.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Baltimore. It's all about how well we can run the ball, but I'll probably say Detroit and Baltimore.
Yeah. Detroit would be up there for me too. I'd also say Philly.
I forgot about Philly.
Now, of course, a lot of Eagles fans, big time problems with Jalen Hurts, right? Oh, he can't throw the ball, this, all that. But no, Philly too, to me as well. Like, if there was two players right now in the AFC and NFC that could carry their team to playoffs, not quarterback, it would be Saquon and Derrick Henry. So then, but you make a good point. Detroit as well, especially if they still had David Montgomery, because you'd have that duo in the backfield, plus Laporta, plus Amon-Ra St. Brown, plus that coaching staff. I mean, yeah, they could still get places. Like, I could see Ben Johnson still being able to scheme things up for Who's their backup?
I believe it's Teddy Bridgewater
Yeah,
again.
Teddy Two Gloves now and Hendon Hooker. Man,
I think Teddy Bridgewater can go in there and win a game.
he
Not
probably
necessarily
could.
saying a playoff game, but I think it just shows it just shows if you were to take a quarterback out. I feel like that offense does not look that much different with Teddy Bridgewater manning
Yeah,
that offense for a game.
I agree. I guess who would be the least competitive? Like who would be the worst without their quarterback? In terms of biggest drop off, to me it'd probably be the Bills. But you could probably make the case to Steelers because they're probably already the worst with Russ. If you take away Russ Fields, they're not going to get any better. So it's like the Steelers probably, but in terms of the biggest drop off, it would probably be the Bills. And maybe the Chiefs too. But to be fair, Mahomes hasn't played at his normal level this year.
If
But I
I'm going
mean, you're taking away
AFC,
Patrick Mahomes. It's like it probably is KC then because you're taking away Pat. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It'd be between KC and Buffalo.
if I'm going AFC, I'm probably going to say I was thinking Pittsburgh too. I might go Buffalo. I just that team's not good without Josh Allen. Josh Allen is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And if I had to go NFC, it's going to be granted again, and it's going to be Tampa. I think without Baker Mayfield, that team is looking at Travis Hunter in mock drafts to possibly be a Buccaneer if Baker Mayfield is not the quarterback.
100%. I was going to go Tampa as well. No chance they're anywhere near where they are right now without Baker. I mean, you'd be relying on Todd Bowles and a backup to win playoff games. That's not what you want to put your hopes in. Believe me, I have experience. Todd Bowles and Ryan Fitzpatrick going up to Buffalo in week 17 of 2015 just to lose to Rex Ryan and the Bills. So, anyway, fun exercise there. Let us know what you think about that in the comments. Maybe we can even take a deeper dive into that next week. But either way, speaking of quarterbacks and removing players and most impactful and all that, MVP rankings. This year's MVP is definitely a two-man race. It feels like it always is, but Allen, Lamar, I guess kind of top five. Like, who would be your top five right now MVP rankings?
Lamar's still one. After yesterday, I'm gonna have to keep Lamar up in one. Well, actually, after yesterday, I flipped Josh Allen and Lamar. Lamar's going to take over one for me. Josh Allen not playing today, I think kind of hurts. Lamar at one, Josh Allen two. I know the team record doesn't implicate it, but Joe Burrow has to be three. He's doing exceptional things. I have Saquon at four and Derrick Henry at five. But that my honorable mention, if I had to throw an honorable mention in there, it's so many guys to go with. I know we can look at golf. You can look at Darnold. Jamar Chase is my honorable mention. Receivers just do not get enough love when the MVP kind of voting.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with you. And I mean, I feel like this MVP, maybe every year it's like this, but I feel like this MVP is pretty deep. Like you can make the case for maybe 6 to 7 guys that should be heavier considered or heavy. I mean, Lamar and Josh are obviously the top two. I'm pretty much there with you as well. Like I'd go Lamar right now 1, then I would go Allen 2. You can make the case for either. We kind of just did the exercise there about if you remove which quarterback who's the most complete team. I mean, you remove Allen in terms of the definition of most valuable. If you remove Allen from Buffalo, there's probably not many quarterbacks that can do what he's done with those weapons. James Cook's obviously had a very good year, but I mean, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, those are guys that are only going to produce with elite quarterback play like Allen. But Lamar Allen, if we're being honest, Josh Allen probably should have won it last year. Like Lamar is more deserving of it this year than he was last year. Would you agree? Like his numbers last year were not that impressive. His overall season last year was not as impressive as as it is this year. I mean,
which is why Dak Prescott should have won it last year, but
yeah, Dak,
to
or
each
even
his own.
yeah, I yeah, Dak.
Hmm.
I mean, it's you know,
Now, there is a guy that I feel like you were going to mention that I'm kind of is having the best year he's ever had statistically with injuries, and that's Baker Mayfield. I mean,
yes,
highest in completion percentage, 71.7, possibly goes up or down today. We'll see.
yep,
Most yards he's ever thrown for, most yards per attempt, 39 touchdowns. The 15 interceptions are kind of concerning, but the interception talk with Baker Mayfield, it's rough because he has a stretch of games where he won't throw one at all, and then he has a stretch where he might throw two or three each game. But 39 and 15 for Baker, and he's missed the game. So I mean,
yeah,
we could be talking about after today. Let's say he goes out there and throws three that puts him at 42. We could be talking about 45 touchdowns, maybe. That one game he missed. This is
yeah,
without Chris Godwin, Cade
yeah,
Otton out of nowhere, without Mike Evans for some time. That Baker Mayfield is very slept on this year in terms of just what he brings to that team.
yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree with you on that one. I mean, you could make the case that. I mean, after today, he might have more touchdown passes than Lamar and Allen. He
Yes.
already has more than Allen.
He has 39. He
Yep,
three today. Puts him over
yep.
for I think most in the second most Tom Burrow.
And like you said, he already missed a game, so you could possibly be talking about he could already be at 42 touchdowns right
Yeah,
now if he has a three
yeah.
touchdown game, um, where he'd be going maybe for like 45 today, right up there with Burrow. So yeah, I would go Lamar, Allen, Baker's definitely around there. Saquon 2, I guess Saquon 3, and it may be Burrow 4. But then again, I, I think Burrow 3. Like, to me, Burrow has not gotten enough attention this year. And maybe it's because of everyone's talking about Lamar, everyone's talking about Allen, everybody's talking about Saquon and the rushing record, even though he's not even playing today. But, that was like, where would we, again, talking about just the most valuable, and the same thing goes with Baker as well. But this guy, I mean, Burrow's first in yards, first in touchdowns, third in QBR. He's thrown 43 touchdowns this year. I mean, he's had to play a pretty much perfect game every single week
Yeah.
just to give his team a chance because that defense has been so bad this year. I mean, if you put Burrow on any team with an average defense, if you put this version of Burrow on any of the previous Bengals teams he's played on, forget about it. But Burrow would be 3. Then I guess like throw Saquon, and then Baker 5. You'd also have Darnold in there because, got to ride on the Darnold train. All aboard the Sammy Dimes train. I like Jamar Chase. Derrick Henry's definitely in that conversation as well. I could actually make the case Derrick Henry's probably the more dominant running back than Saquon, but yards wise, like, everyone's just going to go offensive player of the year. It's going to be Saquon.
And kind of what I want to throw into when you look at Baker and you look at Joe Burrow, it's so funny, and it reminds me of just the Dallas Cowboy argument stuff last year, where it's like, okay, well, and specifically the playoffs, where it's like, okay, well, the one guy doesn't do his job, and in this case is the quarterback.
Yep.
Oh, the quarterback this, the quarterback that, quarterback this. It goes to show you how great your quarterback can play. It's up to the team because Joe Burrow by himself is not 8-8. Baker Mayfield or 9-8, whatever Cincinnati's record is. Baker Mayfield after today is not 9-8. That Tampa Bay Bucks team is 9-8 because that defense has been, Cincinnati's case, the defense has let them down. And even for Tampa, their defense has let them down. Baker and Joe Burrow have done literally every possible thing they can do. They have become Superman for their respective teams, and they still are might not even make the playoffs because the team let them down. It's just funny when people the outsiders, the people that look into it, that I guess I don't want to say don't know ball too well, but I'm gonna call it them. They lack ball knowledge. where you look at it and you're like, oh, well, your team's 9-8, the quarterback sucks, but yet your quarterback is first in every single category statistically, but they have 8 losses.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this too, just on that whole, again, sometimes I feel like people in a way like forget the whole meaning of MVP, most valuable, like taking away this player. And a lot of times it's just a stat thing. It's whoever could put up the most touchdowns, all that stuff. That's in every sport now. The MVPs just turn into who can put up the best numbers. But is it crazy to say, and this is nothing to do against Saquon and anything like that. Like I have nothing against Saquon, but is it crazy to say that the Eagles as a whole are more valuable to Saquon than Saquon is valuable to them? Because Saquon was never doing this with the Giants. And now he's got a lot more talent around him, better offensive line, better coaching staff. Like, do you feel like this Saquon season is more a product of the Eagles than it is himself?
You're saying that the Eagles basically are benefiting more from Saquon than Saquon is benefiting.
No, like
from the Eagles.
I feel like Saquon's benefiting more from the Eagles than they are. I guess it's how do I phrase it?
I see what
MVP,
you're at.
From an MVP perspective, if Saquon was really like the most valuable player or this good, he would have been in the MVP conversations with the Giants all these years because he would have carried them. Now is with the Eagles putting up 2,000 yards. He never did this with the Giants. Like you look at Baker Mayfield, for example, just to compare the two. Mayfield's dealt with injuries to his top 2 receivers. Let's call a spade a spade. The Buccaneers coaching staff is not that good. I mean, the Todd Bowles hype is, and I've got nothing against Todd Bowles. Like, believe me, the bad coaching I've seen with the Jets, there's been a lot worse recently than him. And you know, he's given us the one winning season I've witnessed in my life, even though they never made the playoffs. But whatever. 2015 was the best season I've had as a fan because I don't remember 2009, 2010. I was too young. But like that coaching staff, the injuries, Baker Mayfield should be higher. Saquon, it's left the Giants, went to the Eagles, and now he's 2,000 yards. Is that Saquon or is that more he's in the perfect situation?
And I don't want to take, kind of piggybacking I don't want to take nothing away, but
it's just, I guess, more to like help support the Baker argument.
But hear me out. Let's not act like Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift weren't in Philly having Pro Bowl years. Obviously not 2,000 yards, but having absolute like great years that got them paid. So I'm kind of with you on that. And it sounds like we're kind of knocking Saquon for what he's done, but Philly has been known for a great run game, and whoever has come through Philly as a running back has had a bunch of success. It just happens that in this case for Saquon, it was a big middle finger to the Giants all year. So he was out to prove a point.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. It's I don't know. It's just going through my thought process of the whole MVP, Saquon. I also, and this isn't, and believe me, like I'm not saying this because I don't like the Eagles. Actually, it's more complimenting the Eagles than anything because the Eagles system is actually benefiting Saquon. But to me, if Saquon was really this good, really this MVP caliber player, he would have done this on the Giants. You know, like he would have done more with less. So
I mean, to just actually, I might rewind here a little bit. I think for Saquon to lead Daniel Jones and that Giants team to a playoff berth, not only a berth, but a win, has to go on one of his most accomplished things he's ever done in his career. So that might help his MVP case because to lead Daniel Jones and the Giants to anywhere, that takes a guy, and Saquon did it. He's the only one to do it.
He did it. Yeah. Yeah. You could go either way with it. It's just, just stuff coming off the dome right now as we talk about the MVP. And, and look, I mean, you look at, again, you want to define the whole MVP thing. Saquon now at the Eagles, you look at what's happened to the Giants, talk about most valuable. I mean, the guy left and they've won 3 games this year. But also, to be fair, with they also lost Xavier McKinney, who is playing at a very high level this year. I think his absence has definitely affected the defense in a big way. They also got a lot worse coaching staff wise. I mean, Wink Martindale walking out the door has really, really hurt them. That defense does just not have the same intensity, the same, like they executed at a very high level. Wink Martin, they would blitz the heck out of you. They were very tough to play against. Losing Wink Martindale was also a big blow. So there was other factors too. And, the Giants have had, Tyler Nubin has stepped up for them. And you also have had, Tyrone Tracy play solid. I mean, there's nothing Tyrone Tracy can do this year for him to reach Saquon's level. But over time, I think Tyrone Tracy could be a solid running back for them. I believe Nubin got surgery. Did he? He's been out the last couple games. But prior to that, he was solid. But yeah. Anyway, Lions Vikings tonight. Shall we dive in?
Absolute banger on Sunday night.
Yes, 100%. It's a big one. Game 272. I mean, the last 2 years, I forget the last game of 2022. Trying to think.
Was that? I feel like that was that Lions Packers. I could be wrong. I remember they did play.
Yes,
I think that kept Green Bay out.
That was That was Dan. You're spot on. Good call on that one. That was the Rodgers walking off the field with Randall Cobb last time, and the Lions that year, they were already eliminated earlier in the day with the Seahawks win over. I believe they beat the Rams. And they were eliminated earlier that day, but Dan Campbell and that team still went out there. They went 9-8, and that was the start of this really whole run because then last year they dominated. And then, going into last year, the Lions were the darlings of the NFL. Everybody was hyping up the Lions. So, yes, you're right. It was 2022. And then the Jets bought into Rodgers' nonsense and said, oh, come join us. And here we are 2 years later, and Rodgers is going to be walking off the field today with Devontae. So here we are. Time is really just a flat circle. NFL
like how they found a way to tie that into Rodgers, but and all the pieces connected. But
the Jets saw Rodgers no show on Sunday night against the Lions at home with a playoff berth on the line and said, "Let's trade him."
It'd be great. You should do that as a Jet. I think. Hey, pizza's great here. Just come on over. Why not?
You got Hackett. We got everything.
Why not? Oh man.
Anyway. Tonight, Vikings, Lions. Now, the real question, can you remember 2021 last game of the season? How's the recall now? Is it 2021?
Probably not. I'm probably not going to get to that one.
I remember the last game of the Jets 2021 season. Bills, Jets last week. Zach Wilson threw a nice touchdown to Keelan Cole, and that was it.
Keelan Cole, Utah legend. Dropped the ball before the goal line on a punt return legend. What a guy. 2021.
Let me see. I'm going to look up 2021 NFL week. That was the first year, right, of the 17 game schedule. Yeah. NFL week 18 schedule 2021. Let's see. The Cowboys played on Saturday. They beat the Eagles 51-6.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that, but
yeah, I remember this game. This was the Chargers Raiders game where, remember, both teams could make the playoffs with a tie.
Yes.
And remember they were wondering if both coaches were going to just play it out for the tie so both could get in. I remember that now. Yes, because that was the Brandon Staley. Then they went to Jacksonville and blew it.
Yep.
Wow.
What a time. Man,
why do I just forget about these games until I realize when they actually happened? I remember that game now. Yes. Anyway, tomorrow is or today rather. Tonight is a good one. Lions, Vikings, potentially the best of the three games or the two past year games we just talked about. Last year was a good one. Dolphins, Bills was definitely a fun one with what was on the line there. I mean, everything's on the line. This is the game of the year by far, most impactful game of the season. This is basically feels like a playoff game. What's on the line in this game is huge, really. And maybe this is an exaggeration, but you can make the case. This game is the difference between, honestly, going deep in the playoffs and maybe being eliminated first or second round. just because of the implications of what happened. The Lions this year have been the number one seed all year. They've been standing up at the top. Vikings right behind them. They're now at number 5. If the Lions win today, Vikings win today, they clinch the first round bye. Whoever loses today now all of a sudden has to swallow this loss and then turn around in a week and go on the road and play a wild card game. So massive on so many levels. 14-2 teams. Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. We mentioned in the open, script writers on fire with this one. What are just your overall thoughts heading into this one?
I'm going out. I'm coming out hot. Vikings are winning this game tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the Vikings are winning this game tonight. That probably also spoils my underdog pick. Vikings +3. There's just something, I don't know what it is. I think tonight might be the night where Dan Campbell's aggressiveness comes back to hurt them, and there's going to be some questionable things in that game where it's going to hurt them when it comes down to that fourth quarter. And I don't know what it is. I think, just all the hype with Detroit. And again, like you said, last year, everyone loved Detroit. Oh my goodness, go Lions. And all this year still. All the hype on it. We even picked Detroit to be our to represent the Super Bowl for
Lions,
NFC. That doesn't change things. That does not necessarily change things. Because I think an angry Lions team in the 5th seed has more reason to, kind of go on. But I think Minnesota has been so slept on and so under the radar, even with 14 wins for some odd reason. They're going to go into Detroit today, and they're going to win a close one. Last second field goal, Minnesota will win this game and get the 1 seed. Just like we predicted from the beginning of this year, J.J. McCarthy gets hurt. Minnesota wins 14 games, goes into Detroit, takes the 1 seed. Like we both predicted. I don't know if you remember, but I remember that. We predicted that. That's happened.
Yeah. No, 100% that we were both on board with that. And I'm right there with you. I think the Vikings win this game. I don't know exactly. I think I know why I feel this way. To me, it's just Detroit's been so banged up, and you can tell in their play. Like defensively, they over the last really 4 weeks, I would say. The Chicago game was good, but then again, not taking anything away from them, but if you can't contain the Bears and Caleb Williams, then you've got some problems. So they were able to slow them down, but they let up 34 to a injury-riddled Niners team that was already eliminated. They obviously had the bad game against Buffalo where they almost let up 50. Even in that Green Bay Thursday night win, they put up 31. They should have won that game by a lot more. So I do think some of the injuries defensively are starting to come back to them. Teams are kind of starting to find a way. And really this Lions defense all year, it's been interesting. Like they'll have weeks where they dominate, and then there's weeks where they let up, 24, 30 points. And it's like the offense needs to go out there and pretty much convert almost every single drive. They need to be perfect. I just think that Vikings, to me, I feel like in a way have a little less pressure on them in this game. Like they're coming in as the road team. They're underdogs. All year they've been doubted. I mean, going into the playoffs, they're going to be doubted. Not only because it's Sam Darnold and it'll be his first time in the postseason, but it's also the Vikings. We know the history there of them getting to the playoffs and then getting bounced. I think the Lions just have gotten to a point now where they've got so much pressure on them. They're at home. Like they've held this 1 seed pretty much all year. I don't know if it's been wire to wire. Like week 2 after they lost to Tampa, they might not have been the 1, but whatever. Probably from like week 3 or 4 onwards, they've been the 1 seed all year long. To then all of a sudden lose it late would be pretty tough and not embarrassing, but it would certainly take a hit to their whole playoff stock in a way from how people look at them if they let the Vikings come into their own building and beat them. But to me, I think one of the biggest things is just the chess match. I mean, it's going to be crazy to see kind of what happens tonight from a Vikings OC DC perspective against these coordinators for the Lions. Like Ben Johnson and not Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson and Brian Flores. That's a huge matchup. What does Ben Johnson's offense? How does he go up against Brian Flores? Right. This is two guys that are potentially like, you talk about teams searching for coaches right now. This is the game to look for. Brian Flores, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, all in the same game, all trying to lead their teams to victory here. Flores and Glenn, obviously DC's and Ben Johnson, one of the hot, offensive minds in this coaching cycle. So that's a matchup I'm looking for. I'll say this, and I could certainly see where the Lions, if they lose this game, they could potentially come out next week and kind of light a fire under them, where maybe some people start to doubt them this week and they come out next week and beat up on Tampa. But they did lose to Tampa earlier in the year. Last year's wild card game was actually, or divisional round rather, because they played the Rams in the wild card, was actually pretty close. Like, could you see a world where this loss could be so deflating, where this, for the Lions' perspective, if they would to lose this game after being the 1 seed all year, then you let Darnold and this Vikings team come into your own building and beat you, to then have to get up tomorrow and prep for a game on the road? Do you feel there could be a chance where the Lions lose this game, get so dejected where they get bounced first round next week?
Yes, I can. I can't. Just for some reason, you go back to, the divisional and you look at week 2. For some odd reason, it's almost like Tampa has this Lions team figured out. I don't know what it is, as much Todd Bowles, criticism that you have given him. When it comes to Detroit, he has it figured out. And I think kind of tying in what I'm about to say and what you were saying earlier, when you look at this team where it's like, I've been the 1 seed the entire year.
Yep.
I let a divisional opponent march into our building and beat us, and we lose the 1 seed. Like, that's a lot of pressure. So now that pressure comes on, because now all the talk is like, okay, well, what are you going to do moving forward? Are you going to lay another egg, or are you going to prove why everyone thought you were, a Super Bowl front runner? Now you're going to Tampa, and again, you're outside. Weather is definitely going to play a part, even though it's not too hot here in Florida. Like, we're in the 60s, but dome outside, something completely different. You got to go into Tampa, get that bad taste out your mouth of losing at home, knowing it was just win, and you're sailing. You don't even play a week. You just sit back, wait for your next game. That's going to be tough. Like, that is going to be very tough.
And again, I like the Lions a lot, and I'm just hoping for a good game tonight. To be honest, I like both of these team stories. The Lions are obviously a very likable team. I'm happy for Darnold and all that in Minnesota. I'd love to see him go deep. So I really don't have a rooting interest in this one. Like, if this was Lions, whoever else, I'd definitely root for the Lions. If it was Vikings against anybody else in the NFC, I would definitely be on board with the Vikings, just because of both teams' stories there. And not trying to be negative to the Lions, but you do get into a position where you lose this game and then you lose to Tampa Bay, you start to question, like, all right, what really is this team then? You go from title game to then collapse. Like, what would they be next year then all of a sudden, So, and I know that's maybe looking ahead, but that would be a massive collapse to be 14-2, 1 seed all year, then lose 2 games in, let's say, I don't know, 2 games in a week, and then boom, your season in the blink of an eye is over. So, and that's why too, just the Vikings, like, if they lose tonight, okay, they've been the 5 seed all year. They've been kind of, the expectation is, it feels like at this point for Minnesota, the first round bye is a bonus, but it'll be interesting. I don't know. This Lions team they've been weird recently, where, like, even though they've won some of these games, they've let up a lot of points. It feels like this could be like the Bills game in a way, where they're at home, all this hype, and then the Lions come in or the Vikings come in and just kind of run all over that defense, or not run all over, I guess, pass all over, but you get the point. So I'm assuming then one of your underdog picks is Vikings.
Oh yeah, Vikings +3.
Yes. So absolutely. I guess, should we transition right into that to close out the show?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
massive week. This is bigger than game 272, by the way.
For all those that's kind of been along with us all season, this is the equivalent to like Cavs Cavs, Warriors, and all those finals. Like we both went 0-3 last week. I absolutely had a chance to run away with it, but I turned into playoff Dallas Cowboys and kind of forgot how to do things. So I went 0-3. I believe I'm sitting at 26-25 after the Panthers, Broncos, and Titans all were pathetic. So yeah, big week for me. But so I already got one. Vikings +3. I am also going to go Texans +1.5. I think they're playing starters today. I don't know. To be an underdog, Tennessee is disrespectful. Give me Texans +1.5. And to wrap it up, I'm going to go Chiefs +10.5.
All righty.
Carson Wentz, I mean, it's not like Chad Henning's out there playing ball. Like, this is Carson Wentz. This guy was once an MVP, candidate at a point in time, led the Eagles to a Super Bowl or led them close enough. And, the story with Nick Foles doing the rest. Give me Chiefs +10.5. I think this is a 3-0 week for all the marbles.
Like the confidence.
I'm confident.
All righty. I agree with you on the Vikings game. I'll go Vikings +3. Right, it's at 3. Yes, it is. Vikings +3. I'll be honest. This week is an interesting week just because of like which teams are sitting guys, which teams aren't, who's playing, who's not, how some of these starters, if they play, are they going to play the full game, all that stuff. It'll be interesting. Since I got to go a little different here. I already picked the Vikings. I like the Chiefs pick, but I need to make up some ground. So I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to go Niners +4.5 over the Cardinals here. Two teams playing for nothing. So my hope is that, the Cardinals looked terrible last week against the Rams. Niners, they put up some points against the Lions. I think the Niners can put up some points this week. I think they can win. So give me the Niners +4.5 and hopefully make up 2 games. The deciding factor will be the Texans, Chiefs, Niners, Panthers games. So we'll see.
All right.
Big week.
Oh, you said Viking. What was your third one? I got Vikings +3, Niners +4.5.
And then Panthers +7.5.
Panthers +7.5.
Yes, against the Falcons. I know might not be the greatest pick, but we go Panthers +7.5. Yeah, I need to make up some ground here. Need to get strategic. I thought about Jags +3.5. That Jets plus the Dolphins +1 is intriguing, but I don't trust Tyler Huntley in the cold enough, so I'm not gonna. Although Tyler Huntley did play with the Ravens, I just don't trust the Dolphins in the cold enough. I don't think the Jets will win, but I'm not confident enough to pick that game. So I'll rather go Niners to beat the Cardinals and the Panthers to at least keep it close. And week 18's in the books.
There we have it. Big week.
Yep.
We will see.
Yes. So that'll do it. Another week down. We'll be back next week previewing all of the wild card weekend action. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate your support as always all season long. And enjoy the final full Sunday of football before the off season for half the league and playoffs for the other half. So we will talk to you guys next week.